another episode, Better Learning Podcast. Today we are talking about the movie Back to School. So this is a classic from 1986. So I'm going to pull in Carla Cummins, my co-host. Good to see you. How you doing, Carla?
Fabulous. School's almost out, so it's not back to school anymore. It's out of school.
Yeah, it's like end of school. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our guest today is Thea Wayburn with BRIC Architecture. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We were just talking about how I love like hearing the stories of why people pick the movies. It's like this window into their personality a little bit. So I'm going to start right there. Back to School, Rodney Dangerfield. Why did you pick this movie?
Okay. I'm going to preface it with this is definitely not my favorite movie or TV show about school. Like I'm a diehard Abbott Elementary watcher. Like I could name a bunch of other schools, but this movie has been stuck in my head for the past, I'd say 8 or 9 months. So I have one son. He is about to graduate from high school, and I think my husband and I spent the better part of the 5 months last year touring almost every college he wanted to go to. I think we were at 9 colleges. And I haven't set foot on a campus since I graduated, from grad school in the late 90s. And college looks pretty awesome. Like there's dorms are not the size of shoe boxes anymore. And there's a gym in every building and a Starbucks, and the dining halls look like, 5-star restaurants. And so I was telling my son, well, I'm just going to come to school with you because I'm going to miss you too much. And this looks pretty cool. And I can work remotely. And he's like, no, Mom, no. That's a bad idea. So I was relating that story to a coworker of mine. He's like, yeah, you could just be like Rodney Dangerfield and go back to school. And that's how that movie's been stuck in my head.
That's awesome.
So, and you have to think about it. If you think about that movie and you think about the way the world's working now, people go back to school at any age. So why not? I could go major in something completely different. That's not architecture, and just, hang out at a really nice dorm. So,
that is kind of like retirement life that I feel like a lot of us are like, wouldn't it be great to just live by your friends, have all the food taken care of?
Yeah.
You have entertainment, everything all in walking distance.
Yeah. Yeah. You need a late night snack, they'll feed you cookies. You don't have to worry about anything.
Couldn't ask for anything more, right?
No, college looks great. So, other than the price tag of college these days, it looks pretty great. So,
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of how that movie got stuck in my head.
That's awesome.
And then, so like I mentioned, I went back and was watching it, and I was just like, oh my God, none of this would be real. None of this would happen. And I don't know if that's the grown up in me versus when the movie came out, I would have been like a middle schooler and probably thought it was the coolest. And college is awesome. Look what you can do. And I was watching it and I was like, nope, that can't happen. No, you can't get a permit that fast to remodel a dorm room. The cranky old person in me was just like, that's not realistic. But I think
tear apart your plot. Why don't we?
Yeah, it was just wrong. But I think the beauty of that movie, the premise of it is just like the essence of you can go back to school and you can change your career, middle life. You can, be an empty nester and decide, oh, this is the time I want to go back and, be a student again. And, with college being online or virtual, anybody can do it and work it in their time. So I kind of took that beauty away of the thing is you can do it if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. Carla, all right, I always like hearing Carla's reaction because have you seen this movie before this?
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of the time it's the first time you've seen the movie.
Yeah. So this one I actually had seen, but did have to rewatch it because I might have seen it, but does not mean that I remember anything, nor could I quote any, nor could I even tell you the quote. But it's not realistic. There's also another one that just recently came out on Netflix where some 40-something-year-old woman was acting like a 20-something-year-old, and she went back to college with her daughter. And I'm like, why would they remake this as a female version? And so I thought of this movie when I saw that on Netflix, and I was like, what the heck? Why? You can't mess up a good thing.
No. Why would you try to recreate Rodney Dangerfield?
You just can't. You can't.
Leave it alone, people.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was one I watched a lot as a kid. I don't know if this was just one that was on repeat on HBO or something like this, but I remember watching this with my brothers a lot. And it's it's total 80s. This is
Oh
just
yeah.
like right in the middle, like just all the 80s stuff that's just ridiculous. But there's like this weird nostalgia to that era for sure.
Yeah, like a lot of movies. You're right, Kevin. All you watch movies from the 80s and you're like totally unrealistic, hilarious, like every genre plot twist, like storyline, like how do I was just thinking like the Rodney Dangerfield's son in the movie, has a crush on the, popular girl, and then like an hour into the movie they're like, I love each other. It's like that's just not how it works. It's just
Yeah,
not how it
there
works.
were a lot of things I'm like, oh, like I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah. So
For some reason the teacher Diane, for some reason her character just bothered me in this movie. I'm like, what are you
But
doing?
for some reason, it wasn't like you didn't have anything other than her voice annoyed me, or just her in general.
I don't.
What was it?
They made her. I don't know if it was on purpose or the way she played it, but I felt like here was like a professor, like a very intelligent professor, and they made her just seem like really ditzy and like, yeah, like just like, oh, I'm
They
just
dumbed her
gonna
down.
go. Yeah, they totally dumbed her down.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's totally okay. I'm gonna just go tutor my older student and then go out to dinner with them and then like party with them. Like I just don't
Yeah,
know. Like
and at the end of the first date, walk by the current guy that she's dating
yeah, and just be like, "What's
as
up?"
they go
Yeah,
into her house. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was kind of weird too.
Yeah, I didn't remember those aspects of it watching it when I was younger, but I did remember the triple Lindy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
everyone remembers the triple Lindy.
Yes, yeah,
Like I
and
can't. I don't know any of the one-liners, but like if that's the triple Lindy, was like that comes to my head every time. So
yeah. Which now too, I was looking. I'm like, how odd is it that the sport they picked here in like college was like the big one where they have like huge crowds and they have cheerleaders at was diving.
and weren't they in like Minnesota or Michigan? Like it was like diving
Although
would not be one that you would think that would be there.
no, but
Yeah,
think about it.
especially
Swim
outdoor.
class was so different back in the day, right? Like you had swim class in high schools, even where you would dress out for it, if you really
Yeah.
think about it.
I grew up near the Wisconsin border because it looked like it was filmed. I don't think they explicitly said it was in Wisconsin, or they didn't. I don't remember in the movie saying
It
where it was.
looked very northwest. Like if you looked
Yeah,
at like all the scenes of like the overall campus, it looked very
it
northwestern, but they
yeah.
never specifically said what state it
I did
was.
look at it. Was filmed at Wisconsin, so
Oh, okay.
University of Wisconsin, so in Madison, and I did have like in gym class we had swimming where we had to go in the
Mhm.
locker room and change for swimming, and I don't know, do they do that anymore? I
I don't think
I
that
don't
they.
think so unless you're on the swim team. Like I don't think it's part of PE, and I don't think people take PE as much as they used to. I grew up in the South. I don't remember having swim as part of PE.
I feel
So,
like it was like a Midwest and Northeast thing.
but maybe that's what it
And
was.
two, they had indoor pools as well because the climate and the weather. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's as unrealistic as what you think. I think it's weird they had cheerleaders for sure. Because who is really cheering for a swim team? Nobody. Only their
Nobody.
mom. Nobody else.
Well,
Because
that's what I was
nobody
thinking.
cares about
I'm
it.
thinking if this is actual
That
college
is the truth. That
athletics,
is
it
a
is
good point.
100% just the parents sitting there watching,
That is it.
and maybe
Nope.
a couple of their friends, maybe there.
Yeah, maybe.
They for
But
sure
yeah.
should not have had cheerleaders. But that's the Texan in me, right? Where I'm just like, it wasn't football. So
I was thinking the same thing. I'm from South Carolina. I'm like, well, it's not football or something big like that.
like,
Like, why
what
are
are
you have
y'all doing?
cheerleaders?
Yeah.
What are you doing? But
I did look it up too, Kevin, and it did say University of Wisconsin Madison. And to Los Angeles, the interiors were shot in Los Angeles, and then in Industry Hot Hills Aquatic in Industry, California.
there you go.
So
The diving definitely threw me off because at the beginning of the movie, it was all just like, it's kind of like a comedy. You expect a comedy, but the first time that he goes swimming in his pool at his nice house and he does like some unrealistic
Dive.
dive in there, it
Yeah.
just felt so out of place.
Yeah.
If we can get the triple Lindy, then
Yeah.
it's worth it.
It's worth it. It'll win you a swim meet, a dive meet at your school, apparently.
well,
All right. Any other like just comments on the movie before we dig into some of these categories?
no, I wish we still had this humor in movies, though. If I'm being honest, like the last couple that we've done, we just did one super bad. It was uncomfortable for sure. Thea, you should have been on that call, but weird. But I mean, humor is not quite the same. It's not as acceptable, in some of these. But I do wish we still had the humor in these older movies.
That's what makes us. I think that's what makes us go back and watch them over and over, because they're just funny and you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes you probably are like, should I laugh at this nowadays? But like back when that movie came out, like, just laugh. It's just okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Guess who's getting some class?
I'm going to college.
Rodney Dangerfield's going back to school.
That's what I call marine biology. Hey, boys, here's a couple of pens in case you learn how to write, okay? When I used to dream about going to college, this is the way I always pictured it.
Wait a minute, when did you dream about going to college?
When I used to fall asleep in high school.
Here's a book on sex education.
Let me see that.
The world's oldest living freshman.
Really left out the most important thing. Where to get it.
Say it!
Good teacher. He really seems to care. About what, I have no idea. Hey, a little something for the kids, okay? Take that, it's okay, huh?
I don't have any kids.
No, because we're here. Get yourself some kids. We're here. Take it all right? What a woman.
She is the teacher.
I know, I like teachers. Do something wrong, they make you do it over again. What do you say you and I have dinner tonight?
Actually, I'd like to join you, but I have class tonight.
Why don't you call me sometime when you have no class?
He's not just the big man on campus.
Hey, folks, it's on me. Shakespeare for everyone, okay? You too, honey. Ooh, I'd like to tame your shrew.
He's the wildest man on campus.
Shake it up, baby!
Say when.
Right after this drink.
Rodney Dangerfield, back to school.
Well, you want to start with the first award?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so the John Keating Award, which is the best like teacher or mentor. Who would your pick be for that role?
That's a tricky one. I think I would go with the English teacher. I know she was kind of played down, but like she kind of embraced the weirdness of the situation and wanted him to succeed when no one else did.
That's Dr. Turner.
Yeah, was that Diane?
Yeah, Diane.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you remember the scene where he has to be grilled by all the professors, and he's answering the one right of, Dr. or Professor Turner's boyfriend, and he still gives him a D. It's like he got it right. Like you just felt like, even though she, I agree, she kind of, her role was downplayed, and she was kind of like, oh, I'll just go party. Like she really wanted him to succeed, which, we all need a teacher in our lives to do that. So,
Carla, who do you have? Do you have anyone else considered?
No, I didn't have anyone else. I think that Diane was probably the best one.
All right, here's my wild card.
Oh, you have a different one?
Yeah, it is his son, Jason. He's like the only one that has like some rational thought and kind of gets his dad especially when his dad brings in like all the paid tutors to do all the work for him. Yeah, and he's the one who kind of repeats back to him the things that he said that his dad has said to him in the past.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That was throwing it for a loop, because I didn't even consider that at all.
Yeah, I know, Kevin. I think that's a good point, because it was kind of like they've reversed roles.
Yeah, like he was definitely more the adult, the grown up.
He was definitely more the grown up. Like, Dad, you can't. You have to go to class, and you have to buy your books, and usually it's the other way around, where we're telling our kids, "Did you do your homework?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so what is the next one, Kevin? Because I don't have my thing open.
So next one is the clique stereotypes in the movie, where there were definitely a lot of stereotypes in here.
Yeah.
Anyone want to start
Definitely
out?
were some bullies, and I was chuckling to myself when I was rewatching the movie that how come poor William Zabka is always playing some bully? I mean, he was a bad guy in Karate Kid. He's a bad guy in this movie. He's just like a cranky jock who's got a chip on his shoulder. It does it really well, but so you got that bully who's trying to antagonize the son in the movie, and then there's the football team that comes in and gets all mad, and then there's kind of the misfits. I think you would Jason, and I can't remember his friend's name. That's his roommate.
Yeah,
But
Derek, who is Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey
Well, I was
Jr.
going to say it's the younger Robert Downey Jr. That's the one, the
Yes.
artsy misfit guy.
Yeah. So you got those misfits, and then then there's just Rodney Dangerfield, who stereotypes. I just want to be the center of attention, and I'll throw as much money at it as I need to be popular. I'll just buy people.
Yeah,
So.
and then you have Philip, kind of like the professor that is all philosophy and just has
all serious.
Has some arrogance to him.
I need to look up these actors because I'm the worst with names.
Crazy how many people are in that movie. And like, I was watching it and I was talking to my husband. I was like, you remember Adrian Barbeau was in this movie? He was like, what? It's like, yeah, it's kind of a star-studded cast on a movie that
Yeah, that's
You
true.
wouldn't think that.
I know the ones that were. I'm like, oh, I know them. I know, like Lou, Burt Young from the Rocky movies. Like, basically,
that guy's
he's playing the same role in a lot of ways.
Again, he's kind of like William Zabka. Let's play an angry sort of jock. It works.
And he had Ned Beatty playing Dean Martin, which the joke on Dean Martin too. Which
I love that.
Yeah. All right, so I have a side story in here since we're talking about cast. Is when I was in high school and college, I worked at this Marriott resort, and they had a golf course, and they were filming my best friend's wedding, like 10 minutes away, and this guy just like comes up and kind of looks familiar, but I'm like didn't really think anything of it. It was this older guy, and he just hands me a sheet of paper. And it was an actor. His name was M. Emmett Walsh, who was the coach, the diving coach. And what he does is he walks around. He has a stack of piece of paper, and I guess people would say like, I recognize you, and it would just literally be like, this is why you recognize me, and it listed all the movies and the roles that he was in.
That's so weird.
Yes. So now I actually know the guy's name, M. Emmett Walsh.
Now I'm looking him up because
and he's been in like a ton of stuff, like hundreds of movies, and it's always just kind of that small role in every movie. So he's never really had a major role.
I don't think, though, if you're looking at any cliques, I don't think that Thornton fit into any of them.
I wouldn't say like a traditional school clique, but I think they made him into just like kind of this stereotype of like business owner type of guy, like money hungry, like just wants to party, doesn't care about I thought kind of wants to use people. I would say it was a little bit of like I'm just gonna hire people to do everything for me.
Yeah, I thought he, like, with his character, he just kind of challenged the system rather than trying to belong to it. Like everything was resistant. Okay, so you have the class clown as our next category, right?
I mean, you could put Thornton Millen as the class clown because he could because he was in there, goofing off. He sends a secretary to take his notes. Like he's like, I don't need to study. I'm gonna party at our remodeled dorm room.
Yeah, I think Robert Downey Jr.'s character though. The oddball.
That's who I was thinking too. Derek. Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't even remember his name, but
he would be my second choice for the very opposite reasons. Like he just wanted to march to his own drum and did his own thing and didn't care if he was weird, which you kind of have to love that about him.
Yeah. The blue hair. Yeah. And heckling the divers.
Yep.
Wearing the anti-football suit to the rally, and not worrying about the consequences of like you might get beat up for it or you're gonna get made fun of, which and people who just are comfortable in their own skin, those are people I admire because they just do what they want to do.
Well, unapologetically themselves, right?
Yeah.
No, I thought I would pick the Robert Downey Jr.'s roommate if I were to pick like the class clown. I do think Thornton, obviously, but he just is a funny guy.
So the next category is, we call it the homecoming scene, but was there like an iconic moment, like a scene that is remembered more than others in this movie?
I'd have to say it's the triple Indy.
It's got to be the triple
I
Indy,
mean, the
right?
rest of the movie, like I said, when I rewatched it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. But as soon as the scene came on where they, call him out of the stands, which, by the way, I'll digress. Like in today's day and age, you can't just randomly join a team. Like, where's your credentials? How many years did you have a private trainer? Like, like college, kids sports are so different. And they're just like pulled him out of a crowd. But like, as soon as he did that, I remembered the extra diving boards. I remembered his facial expressions.
Love
Like,
it.
to me, that's the homecoming scene.
Yeah.
You don't think it's when he passed the oral exam?
I mean, it could be, but I jumped right to the triple Indy too.
I mean, I'm in for the dive scene, but I did think too the oral exam was one, because like he actually had to do the work, right? He had to show that he was able to and capable of doing it. So there's no shortcuts, there's no other options. Like this is it. So you got to show up.
The triple Indy though is just, walks in there and does the armpit.
And I remember that too. Like I was flashback to that. Let's say that movie came out in '86, so I would have been like 12. Like I flashed back to like, oh yeah, I remember exactly what's gonna happen. But Carla, to your point, I think like him passing that exam, that's like the feel good part of the movie.
Yeah,
like,
that was probably more meaning to the movie for sure.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that
think
gives it
more
some
than the dive
substance.
scene for sure. But I mean, if I were picking one, that was the one that I was going to pick, because I do think like that is it.
All right, one-liners.
Okay,
I'm curious to hear what you guys think, because there are a lot in here, but there, to me, there was not one like clear winner. So I'd love to hear what you
I
guys
use a line for this from this, not as much anymore because I don't have kids that are in college right now. But when Jen would tell me, so my oldest daughter's name is Jen Thea, and she'd be like, I'm in class, and I would say, okay, call me when you have no class. So, and oddly enough, Victoria on our team, she was taking a course, and she's like, I have to go to class, and I'm like, okay, well, come see me when you have no class. And she looked at me, and I was like, okay, it's from a movie. It was supposed to be funny. So I used that one, but he didn't say that. He said, call me sometime when you got no class, is what he said.
Yeah.
So I pseudo use it.
Thea, did you have anyone?
No, but now that Carla's reminding me of that one, as soon as my son starts college in the fall, I'm going to pull that one out. So,
and it's funny, and then they'll roll their eyes, and they're like, "Oh my god, you're so stupid." You're the melon, Thornton Melon, or you're a melon, Thornton. There's that one.
That's a good one too.
The only one that I thought was different was Rodney Dangerfield's talking to Derek, Robert Downey Jr.'s customer, and he's like, "You look like the poster boy for birth control."
Oh my god, yes.
But now that you say that, Carla, I definitely agree with yours, the winner, and reminded me of when I was like my first like real job. I was doing grad school in the evenings, and we were in like rows of cubes, and it was just like all younger people. So it was a lot of people who would go out after work and be like, "Oh, we're going out." And then I would always be like, "No, I can't. I have class." And then from like a row of cubes over, Bob Baldwin, one of my friends, would always yell, "He's like, Stoller, you have no class."
Yeah, I'm like, I still use it. It's from this movie, but I didn't connect the dots until I watched it. I was like, I am so good. Who knew? There's also too, it's a jungle out there, so be careful.
Yeah, that's a good one. What, you got more?
No, I think that was right. I get no respect. That one was one too. And I say that too. I get no respect. Of course not.
I mean, that's like his catchphrase. Everything.
But I just like, I'm like, that's what I think. Yeah, those are my only ones.
You know, when we work with schools at K-12, it's not just about furniture or design. It's about impact. Our radically student-centered approach puts students at the center of every decision. From that first conversation to the final walkthrough, we're focused on creating spaces that actually work for the kids, the teachers, and the community. So if you're looking to do more than just check a box on your next project, let's talk. Visit K12.com. That's KAY-TWELVE.com and see how we're helping schools transform learning one student at a time. Because at K-12, it's not just about projects and furniture, it's about purpose. All right, we've already talked a little bit about this, but realistic or ridiculous. I guess let's start on the realistic. Was there anything realistic from this movie? Other than if you pay a lot of money, you can do pretty much whatever you want on a college campus.
Which is realistic and also ridiculous. If
Yes.
you think about, like,
Yes.
was that scandal a couple years ago where all the famous people were
Exactly.
paying their people to take tests, or they were on the fake row team or whatever? I was thinking about that. I was like, you can't get away with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the most realistic thing was that, like I already said earlier, like, you can go back to school. Like, that's a pretty realistic thing. Like, the movie, plot and that's a little ridiculous, but the thought that, if you want to go back to school and you put in the work, you can do anything. That was the only thing I thought that was the most realistic part of this movie. Everything else was hilarious and ridiculous.
Well, I think they depicted pretty well in a comical way the tension between like experience and academic credentials, right?
Yes.
Because it does go to say that you don't necessarily have to have the academic credentials to do a job. And I mean, some jobs require it, right? That's not what we're talking about. But when you look at going to business school or having a degree, or a degree is required, like, what, you can have any degree to get some of these jobs. They just require a degree. And what does that mean exactly? Or are you going to hire based on experience and talent versus what's on a paper?
I took that from the movie. Like, I was in the beginning of the movie when there's the young Thornton Mellon and he's talking to his dad. He's not doing well in school, and his dad runs that tailor shop, or you have to go to college. And he's like, I don't want to. And then I'm going to be a businessman. And then when his son tells him he wants to drop out of school, he's like, you have to stay in college. And so it's like, well, this is kind of a little ironic
Role
here,
reversal.
but role reversal. But Carla, good point. And I was thinking about that earlier today. Like, people figure you have to go to college. That's the only way you're successful, or you're a self-made person, like the character of Thornton Mellon. But like today, like, I think this country is doing such a better job of recognizing, like, that's not how all kids work. It's not how kids learn. And we have very important non-college careers that we need to embrace. And I think that's why we see this big push for, career tech and CTE programs and STEM and STEAM, because of the earlier you get kids engaged that in something that's not math or English or chemistry, but they like electrical wiring, like, hey, we need to support that because we need those trades and we want people who are excited and engaged in it. And so I was chuckling, like in the movie, it was like, oh, you can't do that. You have to be in college. And you don't have to be in college. It's not for everyone. And just because you don't go to a 4-year college and become an accountant or whatever, like that's okay. Like, it's okay. It's okay to do something different. And those are the people who, I mean, we need electricians, we need plumbers, we need pastry chefs, we need all that stuff. So,
well, and talent just doesn't come behind a book either, right?
No, it doesn't.
We know a lot of people who are super duper smart, but at the end of the day, is the talent there? Is the connection there? And speaking of wires, are they all connected? Like,
yeah, is the drive there? Like, yeah.
What is
like,
up there?
What works for you? Not some prescribed path.
Yeah, so I do think in a comical way, it did sort of point out the tension between that. And it wasn't anything that was super obvious, but I think that's a realistic thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That was very realistic. I mean, really, Thornton Mellon could have been teaching that business class, because all that theory he knew from experience. Like, no, that theory is, you can just throw it out the window. What I thought was realistic is a little bit kind of in our world here too, is I do think the way the college becoming less and less so in the K-12, thankfully, where it's not so much like lecture based like it used to be, but I still think you go to most college campuses very much like that, where it's just teacher in a lecture hall up front. So that here, is what, almost 40 years later.
No.
Probably pretty similar.
It is 40 years.
Yeah, I can't think of any college that I toured last year with my son where we didn't see a lecture hall that looked just like those lecture halls. Maybe the seats were more comfortable than what they showed in 1986, but I mean, they're still out there. There's still those giant classes. I remember taking them in undergrad. Art history had 150 people in it, and you sat in one body in a sea of college students. So
Yeah. The other things that I thought were interesting is one, when he has a secretary with the typewriter in there, taking notes. I mean, technology is different, but
AI. Just turn that
AI,
bad boy on.
you got to think they're just sitting that and it's transcribing it and giving him a summary of what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought that too when they went back to kind of his room where he had everyone like that, he had like 10 people doing all this work for him. And I'm just like, that's just modern day AI of what
That's
every
our
kid
next
is doing
category,
right
Kevin.
now.
Stop bleeping ahead.
Oh, sorry. All right. Sorry. Well, that will lead right into the iPhone effect. How technology, how would it be different? If that was made now, how would things be different?
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head. They'd be pulling out their smart devices and using AI or all, I'm thinking back before modern technology for me, but what did people do in high school and college? Cliff Notes. I mean, I'm sure there's some digital version of that now. That's how you got by. Or
Thornton would be running a TikTok business class for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. Everyone would have their own Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, and that's how people would be following. His party wouldn't be because like he put flyers out. Like he would just like blast like some social media thing, and then that's how people would show up.
Right? The group projects, how were they done? Not with cake parties. It would be with Google Docs.
All right, let's move on to the next one here, which is The Substitute. If you're going to recast the main roles, could you even do it?
Will Ferrell, Thornton Mellon.
Will Ferrell can definitely do it. I mean, they kind of...
I could see that.
I mean, they kind of did it in Old School.
I know. I was thinking of that movie earlier today, too. Just ridiculous movies.
I put down Tina Fey as Dr. Turner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
she would have played that more sophisticated.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah, like so, Dr. Turgeson, Melissa McCartney, but a fat one, not a skinny Melissa McCartney. Sorry.
You could say the original Melissa McCartney.
Rewind, tag that one. But the original, but like in her original character form, like she was absolutely hilarious, and she plays those roles, right? I could see her doing that role.
I'm trying to think who. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could actually put a lot of people in the Rodney Dangerfield role, and they'd be pretty funny. Yeah. They would just all have their own unique style.
It'd just be,
Yeah, I feel like just the premise of the movie is like a blank slate for anyone.
Yeah.
All right. So, Hags, if you were going to write a comment in a yearbook about this movie, is there any kind of lasting thing? I mean, I probably would write something about Triple Lindy. And then where are they now? If we're going to look at this 40 years later, Thornton Mellon, I mean, we know in real life, Rodney Dangerfield passed away like 20 years ago. But let's say he was still alive.
He'd have a book called The Mellon Mindset, and he'd be doing TED Talks.
There you go.
I don't know.
Or he'd buy an island and he'd just be living out his best days.
Yeah.
That could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, or have like Mellon University and like the learn the ways of real life.
Yeah.
And Derek could probably own some Fortune 500 tech company, and is putting everybody like, you shouldn't doubt me when I was a weird college student.
Yes. Right? Yeah. What would Jason be doing to Son?
Yeah, he would be an entrepreneur, I think, but I think he would be reluctant, and he's only doing it to just like prove that he can make it on his own.
And maybe Lou is on an island, retired with, wasn't at the end? Didn't he have he found a girlfriend? It was like,
I did notice he was just walking around. And I'm like, did I miss something? Did I miss
something? It's like he's not at school. He's just driving, and all of a sudden he shows up. So maybe that's what he's doing. He's on an island somewhere, and he's the popular one. He's got lots of people around him, and he's just telling stories about driving Thornton Mellon around in college or something.
Yeah. All right, so I've added a category: Battle the Bands. What was the best music from this movie?
Well, the only thing I can remember isn't Oingo Boingo
Yeah, Dead Man's
playing
Party.
in the dorm?
He's
And I was
literally
just,
in the movie too.
he's literally in the
Yeah.
movie. I know. I
Yep.
was like, that's that's the music. I was like, this is brilliant. It's like you think about like, how did he just like? I mean, he had money, so he's probably just like get the best band. But like, he just shows up some random band in their dorm room and playing. So
Yeah, I thought that too. There were some other good songs in there, but just having
yeah,
him and Danny Elfman,
Wait.
who's like
yeah.
normally a composer, but yeah, the lead, I think he was the lead singer.
He was.
Oingo
He
Boingo,
was. I
right?
went back and looked at the cast, and I was like, okay,
He's on there, and he's strange looking too. Like you look at him, and he's startling. The other one that's in there is the Beatles, "Twist and Shout."
Yeah,
That one was in there, right? And then
there actually that's like kind of two overlaps with Ferris Bueller. Is Twist and Shout,
Yeah.
and then we talked about the secretary, but that's the same secretary.
It is the same secretary from Ferris
Oh,
Bueller.
the principal in Ferris Bueller.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then
I thought she was gonna like have to pull a pencil out of her hair or something. Yeah.
And then the only other one that I had was Back to School, the Jude Cole one. I'm sure there were tons in there, but those were the only three that stood out. And
Yeah.
I only know that because I had to Shazam the Back to School one. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Anything else on the movie? I'm looking at my notes to see if there's anything that I missed.
I mean, I think we touched a bit on it a little bit. We talked about Lou, but I think he's kind of like the favorite character that's not the lead. Like he's just there supporting his friend, and he's like, and he's like the tough love to Jason, and he's almost like that's Thornton's soulmate there. Like the guy's seen him through divorce and success and failure, and then ends up just conveniently hanging out at college and gets a girlfriend. So
The one thing that I didn't bring up, and I was trying to find a way to do that, but there is a montage in the movie where he's studying, and and he's like
he's falling asleep, he's in the shower, and
but I want to match it up. I swear this music that they used for this montage was the same exact music they used for the studying montage in another movie we did a while ago of Summer School.
Probably.
And I want to match them up because I think it's the same song that they did, and both those movies came out I think in the same year too.
I think
like
you're
86.
right. I think it's really close, the same year, if not like a year apart. But
yeah,
remember the '80s were the decade of the montage.
It was, yep.
Like again, like you knew it was a good movie if there was a montage in it.
That's true.
Right. Yeah, this is a fun movie just to watch again.
It was. I mean,
I don't know if I would have done it because it's not like on repeat on everywhere.
No, and like I said, it's not my favorite movie. It's not one that I'm like, watch every time if I found it on TV, I would sit down and watch it. It's not one of those movies for me. But it was just the kind of the timing of like going back to school and touring with my son, including my alma mater, and just touring it through a parent's eyes and just being like, you're gonna have it made. It's super different.
Yeah.
Like it was really cool. So I was saying earlier, my son is headed to college in the fall, and he is going to my alma mater. He got in, and he's going to be at my alma mater in the fall. But like walking around with him, I was like, I don't remember that. I was like, oh, I lived in that dorm, and then it was like, oh, that's where your dad and I had our first date. So like it's just this really cool nostalgia about going back to school, but I'm just going to be going back with a different hat on. That's why that movie
really
popped
cool.
in my head. It's just it's kind of, again, you can't go back to school if you want to. Maybe I'll go back to school. Now I'm gonna be an empty nester. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, real world, Thea, what types of things are you working on? What are things that you wanted to share?
Yeah. So, we're BRIC Architectures out here in Portland, Oregon, and we are growing by the day. I think we're getting new employees, and we're really fortunate. Actually, this is really good timing today. It's a May bond election out here in Oregon, and so there's a bunch of school districts on the bond measure to pass some bonds, and the bulk of those bonds are non-traditional classrooms. They're the career tech and the makerspace, and it's not just high school. I have a district I'm working on right now where the big push is to put it in the middle school, because they know how popular it is at the high school, so it's trickling down. So it's kind of an exciting day.
That's good to see.
I mean, I'm kind of a nerd about these things. Like, I'll watch the bond elections after 8 o'clock just to see who passes and fails. I mean, obviously, doing K-12 work, like
It's important to know.
it's important for us to know. And some of these districts, we have a chance to work with. But yeah, we're just doing some great stuff. And Carla, you already know Karina, and Karina's out and about. We doing lots of conferences and talking, and we're just we're out here working in the Pacific Northwest, making new buildings or remodeling buildings and being really equitable and getting everyone involved. We have so many meetings. We talk to students, talk to parents. We've got a handful of staff that are bilingual now, so we can do bilingual meetings because we want to make sure that anybody who wants to be represented can be and is correctly represented. So I'm working on a project out here in Oregon where we had 5 high school students on the design team, and you think teenagers are not going to want to sit here and listen to a bunch of architects talk, right? And they were the most vocal and like insightful.
Well, and engaged, usually those are the ones that you walk away with and you're just like, gosh, yeah.
And in all honesty, they're the one, this is their building. I mean, they may not be there when it's done, but like, they're high schoolers. They know what they want, and we're architects, and sometimes we think we know what they want, but we really don't. And so we really value that, and we try really hard to have as much student input, even down to elementary school, like design charrettes with the students. And I worked on a school where this kid said, I want the school to look like a box of crayons. And so as an interior architect, I was like, all right, challenge accepted. And so just saturated color, like the library was blue. Like there was not just this traditional, like boring, quiet library. It was loud and engaging and, full of color. So
I love that.
I love
it.
Yeah.
It's so, we always talk about that too, of in our approach of making sure we can get that student perspective, the teacher perspective, just pulling in the different perspectives early on.
Yeah.
Because, the point, you may get some insights that you just would have never thought about.
Oh, I was going to say, I think to a lot of people, that's a scary thing too, is to get all the different voices, because then you feel like you have to accommodate all of them. But realistically, when you hear them all, sometimes it's enlightening, and you can take bits and pieces of each one, not necessarily fully embrace all aspects of it. But I mean, it's important to get the involvement across the board.
Yeah.
And it was
that's
fun.
why I've been doing K-12 for over 25 years. It's one of those building types where you engage with people who are going to use the building somehow.
Yeah.
Right. And they have a lot of opinions, and you have to learn how to manage those opinions and balance, what you can do with what you hear. But it's so super rewarding to like, oh, yes, of course we need to do that. Or yeah. And then they go in and like, so happy to see that their input was valued. And that to me makes a building extra special.
Yeah. What were you going to say,
Cool.
Kevin?
It was fun going to be in Portland last fall with Learningscapes being there and seeing, because it is a very different style from the rest of the country.
It is.
And being able to go tour some of the schools, there's like, that's one of the things I just love about kind of the way A4LE works and gives those opportunities to learn from others and apply it. Because I was surprised to see how different approach to pretty much every school that we toured in Portland. And I love that, because there were definitely things I'd be like, it may not work in Arizona, but there may be a little, like something in there that just makes you ask a question differently or look at it from a different perspective.
Do you think it wouldn't work in a different place, or do you think that it wouldn't work because people wouldn't be open to it?
That's a good question. I'd love to hear your answer on that. I'll give you mine, and then I want to hear your answer.
Well, on this too. So I didn't have the opportunity to do the school tours, unfortunately. So I didn't get to see any of them. So I don't necessarily know what you're referring to. Although in my time at A4LE, I did have the pleasure of doing a lot of McConnell schools and judging and visiting them. So I do think that there are definite differences. I just don't know like what you saw last year. I
mean, there are differences of just like materials and things that make more sense regionally of, just a lot more wood versus you don't see a lot, in other parts of the country that way. But I do think there are aspects that, to your question of like, why Like, I think there are a lot of things that would work, but I do think sometimes each region, and because we work around the country, like you start seeing it as be like, oh, this one feels very similar to others. I think there's a lot of like keeping up with the Joneses type of things locally in local areas where they'll just look more at their neighboring districts and say, oh, they did that, we need to do that, versus kind of looking outside and do. So I do feel like and it just seems like it's worked out that way in the past where there's just similar styles by state or region.
Yeah. No, I agree with it because I do think, even I just was talking to someone in Washington and I was like, the schools are just different, right? The way that they embrace the space and environments is completely different than other areas in the country. So I don't disagree with that at all. I just was curious what you would say, Kevin. That was it. Sorry.
Thea, I mean, what do you think? Because you've seen different
I
areas.
I think you guys nailed it on the head. I can't put my finger on like what makes it special out here, but it's definitely special. And when I get to go to other conferences, like when I was at Spaces in Houston last November, I did go early to do the tours because I was curious to see schools built essentially same years recently that schools I'm working on, like because we out here, like the market was horrible and you couldn't get anything built and everything cost too much money. And then you go to Houston and it's like, oh, we built this during COVID and they've got like the finishes were like exceptional and the spaces were huge, but they also on the flip side didn't feel very warm and inviting to me. It was more like, here it is and we can afford this because it's either local to our region or it's a district standard. But like some of it was like, oh, it's beautiful and huge, but it didn't feel warm and inviting to me. So
yeah, that threshold experience that you just want to be there. Thank you.
Good discussion.
Hanging
Yeah,
out with
thank
us
you
today.
for doing this.
And bringing a
it's
movie
my
I wouldn't have
pleasure.
thought of either. This, when we look at our list, I never would have thought to put this on our list because it just, I don't know, whatever reason.
Yeah. Yep. But it was a fun one. And to the listeners, if you like these types of discussions, or have any suggestions, betterlearningpodcast.com is our hub for everything. If you go to that, there's some forums if you have suggestions or look at any past episodes, subscribe there. These are a lot of fun. Like, I feel like they're a fun way to talk about things and then pull back into the real world too of what we're dealing with and how we can create better learning environments. So I love that we do it. And I appreciate all the listeners and the feedback that we get in here because we really take it to heart when we're going to our planning meetings. We're trying to make sure that we're picking topics, movies, guests that really relate to the audience. So Thea, it's great talking to you here. We'll
thank you so much.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.